Can you hear me in the back? All right. You may be surprised that I'm delivering Dad's eulogy here at the beginning of Mass. It is not common. It is not orthodox. It might be against the rules. However, if you knew my father, you'd know that he'd heartily approve. I'll start by thanking people who have helped my father and family over the last few months. Many of you know that Dad had a very difficult final 6 months. He was in and out of hospitals, assisted living centers, rehabs, a nursing home, and his own home. And there were innumerable caregivers that showed Dad kindness and compassion, regardless of his condition. These are very special people, and we thank you all. We'd particularly like to thank the caregivers from TLC Home Care and therapists from Vitality. For 3 months, a small group of women cared for Dad 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Dad lived in a very remote part of New Hampshire, which meant very long shifts that were at times very difficult. To Daba, Carol, Kim, Donna, Lisa, and especially Rachel, thank you for never wavering in your devotion and kindness to Dad. Our family and friends, and many of Dad's friends, have been aware of the challenges that Dad and those closest to him have faced in his final months. Karen, Charlie, Jen, the grandchildren, and I all thank you for your calls, texts, cards, and letters, and mostly for the love that you've shown. It's helped immensely to know that there are so many people who care about Dad and our family. When a parent or a close family member passes, you hear from many people. I've even heard from people who I've never met or even heard of. And so I thought, to begin to understand my dad, I'd read an email I received from a guy named Matt Kerwin, who I learned knew Dad when he first moved to Syracuse, New York in 1953 at 13 years old, after an important event in his life. Dad's father was tragically killed the year before, and my grandmother decided to leave the small farming town of Holland Patton, New York, and move into Syracuse. Here's some excerpts from the email. Dennis, I read with much sadness the passing of your dad several days ago. My memories of him were that he was a friend first, but fearless. I recall one summer shortly before your dad arrived in Syracuse, when we were at a block party in the neighborhood. We were all having a good time when this person, Slugger Jackson was his name, who thought he was a real tough guy and liked to start fights, showed up. Your dad's reputation was born that night. He kicked this guy's butt from one end of the block to the other. Take care. Oh, the last time I saw your dad was at our 50th class reunion. It is those times that I remember your dad laughing and smiling with your mom, just being Denny Kelly. Take care, Matt Kerwin. So that email says a lot. My father was a man who left an indelible mark on those who knew him, an unforgettable character. He was tough in every sense of the word. He lived passionately, loving my mom, his family and friends, and the great outdoors with a ferocity that you could feel. He wanted and needed the freedom to roam his own land, loving the silence and the beauty and the beings of the natural world. It brought him peace. Early and throughout his life, he joined conservation groups, wrote columns in newspapers and magazines about the outdoors and conservation. In his latter years, he'd like to call himself the old man in the woods. At the same time, he was a highly social man. He could talk and talk and talk and tell stories with exuberance, and he loved to laugh and smile and be silly more than anything. And threats to the things that he loved were attacked with his fists when he was young, as Slugger Jackson discovered, and with his voice and his pen, as many others discovered over the years. Never a shy man, my father spoke his mind freely, with energy and enthusiasm. His opinions on issues in politics were known to all. There was never any doubt about what he thought, where he stood, or why he thought the way he did. In this way, he taught us many things. Dad fought for himself, and he was a worker. He lived on a farm as a youngster and started raising chickens to sell eggs. He had over 200 hens at 12 years old. He rejected orthodoxy. The constraints and behaviors required to be a successful student didn't fit him, and he bounced around to different high schools and colleges for several years. By the time he graduated college, he had met and married Mom. He was a full-time student, while at the same time worked a full-time job at night as a dispatcher to pay for school, and was a superintendent handyman in their apartment building to cut the rent. After he graduated, he spent a few years as a programmer at the dawn of the computer business. But he was restless, and he hated working in an office. He quickly became impatient with office politics, process, and procedure, and yearned for a different life. And he found that life by becoming a salesman for Mercury Outboards. He was able to combine his love of the outdoors with a job that required him to drive around the Northeast and call on boat dealers, helping them to build their businesses. He was a natural salesman, unafraid to make phone calls and face rejection. I think that came from a deep and clear belief that what he was doing was good and right. He attacked his work with excitement and energy, and he succeeded. While he was a salesman for Mercury, and Karen and I were in grade school, he and Mom saved up enough money to buy an old, rundown house and working 300-acre farm in a rural town called Camden, about an hour north of Syracuse. Camden is in what is called the Snow Belt. We learned a lot from Dad in those years, especially about work. Over 10 years, he transformed that rundown old house and farm through the force of his own will, teaching himself everything: the foundation, the framing of the walls, electrical, heating, plumbing, finish work, all while traveling 3 nights a week for work and building a small stable of cows, pigs, and chickens that we raised. We worked hard every day on that farm. When we weren't working, we'd be roaming the fields and surrounding woods, hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, and boating. We took long camping trips, driving across the country to the Rockies and up into Canada, where we camp and hike and fish and see all God's creation. It wasn't until later in life that I realized the gifts and lessons that we were given. Dad showed us that you can live a life in many different ways. You don't need to follow the same path as everyone else. You don't need to follow the herd. You can live life on your own terms. You can and should think for yourself. Dad taught us to work hard and play hard. There's honor in going to sleep at night exhausted, knowing that you put maximum effort into whatever it is that you did that day. Bring enthusiasm and energy to your day, and every day you'll live a full and rewarding life. Be fearless. You can do anything you set your mind to doing. From the moment his mother moved him from the country to the city when he was 13, Dad wanted to own his own farm and control his own destiny. Dad literally taught himself everything he did in life. He led my mom, Karen, and me on a journey where he transformed that old rundown house and farm, all while we worked jobs, went to school, and had great adventures along the way. These were important lessons, but the one that stands out most is the one that he didn't speak of, which, if you knew him, was very unusual. 5 years ago at my mother's funeral, I thanked Dad for the incredible transformation that we witnessed during my mom's 10-year battle with cancer. He harnessed all of his energy and passion and turned it toward her care, truly upholding the vow that he gave 48 years prior. Dad kept a small memorial to Mom in the corner of his house since she passed. Karen and I found a note that he left on the table near some of her things. It read, "It's been 4.5 years since my wife Peg died. I love her now more every day than I did when she was alive." Despite, or maybe because, his father was taken from him at a young age, he was never afraid to say, "I love you," to hug, to kiss. He was a tough guy, but he made it clear that people need to communicate their love in every possible way. Dad, you showed us how to love with every fiber of our being, without hesitation and without fear. I hope I can live up to your example in this way and pass this lesson on. I heard this song for the first time about 10 years ago, and I've never stopped thinking of Dad when I hear it. It captures my dad and how I feel about him, especially now. And you can all be thankful that I won't be singing it. It's Terry's Song by Bruce Springsteen. Well, they built the Titanic to be one of a kind, but many ships have ruled the seas. They built the Eiffel Tower to stand alone, but they could build another one if they please. Taj Mahal, pyramids of Egypt are unique, I suppose, but when they built you, brother, they broke the mold. Now the world is filled with many wonders under the passing sun, and sometimes something comes along and you know for sure it's the only one. The Mona Lisa, the David, Sistine Chapel, Jesus, Mary, and Joe, and when they built you, brother, they broke the mold. They say you can't take it with you, but I think that they're wrong. Because all I know is I woke up this morning and something big was gone. Gone into that dark ether where you're still young and hard and cold. Now your death is upon us, and will return your ashes to the earth, and I know you'll take comfort in knowing you've been roundly blessed and cursed. But love is a power greater than death, just like the songs and stories told. And when she built you, brother, she broke the mold. Dad, I'll always love you and miss you. As the song said, I woke up this morning and something big was gone. Your spirit lives on within us, in our hearts, our souls, and our memories. You'll never be forgotten. We thank you for all that you've taught us, and most of all for the love you've shown us. We know that you're with Mom, your parents, Sister Barb, and so many more that you love deeply, laughing and smiling, telling stories, and lighting up heaven with your joy. And I now know that while Slugger Jackson may be up there with you, he's keeping his distance.